This is the Greg Bedard Patriots Podcast with Nick Cattles.
Everybody, welcome to the Greg Bedard Patriots Podcast here on location at the Senior Bowl in Mobile, Alabama. It's our last day here, along with most of the NFL people. Today's the last real practice. Friday will be a walkthrough, if they have anything. Productive week down here in Mobile, and now we get to head back to the cold, which should be awesome. A couple of things before we start, because I solicited some Twitter questions, which is always an adventure in itself. But so today in the daily, where's Waldo, where's Vrabel, doing my stalking with binoculars. I in the morning practice did not spot Mike Vrabel or Elliott Wolf. I did see Ryan Cowden, John Streeter, the assorted Cam Williams, the rest of the Patriots front office as far as college scouting, but no Vrabel and Wolf, which is interesting. I don't know what to make of it. They could be conducting interviews, which I'm probably guessing that they are. It seems like they've been doing that down here. They have some more positions to fill on the staff. Like, Mike, what's your sort of vibe where Vrabel and everybody is at this point?
Yeah, I mean, there's still work to be done on the coaching staff, and I think they want to get that completed. So he kind of just, all right, now we hit the ground running. We've got everything in place, and this is how we want to do it. You know, meetings back at home as well, sort of getting everybody on the same page about this is how we want to see players, this is what we need. So there's a lot happening here in a short time. I mean, free agency is right around the corner. The combine's right around the corner. You got to be ready for those things first.
Yeah, I will say to people, I won't give a whole lot of details, but I certainly had my first interaction with Mike Vrabel yesterday, one-on-one. Let's just say he's an interesting dude.
Yep.
And I think the dynamics inside the building as they go forward, I think is going to be something to monitor. We'll just say, like, you know, he knows what he wants. He knows what he's doing. I would say prickly would be a good way to describe.
He's a very strong personality.
Yes. Yeah. So we'll see how that goes. So jumping into the Twitter questions, okay, Jeff Kearney, who I know, Medway shout out. If you were in charge of rebuilding the O-line, who would you specifically be targeting both in free agency and the draft? Go Mustangs. Yeah, as opposed to Millis, Giardi stinks.
Ronnie Stanley, obviously, would be most likely the best left tackle player if he gets to free agency, which I'm still not totally convinced that he will. He finally showed he was healthy for the first time in like 3 years, played the full 17 for the Ravens, played in the playoff game. I mean, he is, when he's on the field, he is a good player. I'm not sure that Baltimore is necessarily going to say, yeah, see you later. Mm-hmm. He has had the serious injuries over the course of time, including his knees. So they have a better intel on what's up with the knees and how much longer do they think he can play than anybody else will. So he's a name that jumps out to me, but I'm not totally sure that he's going to get there. And then I think we've seen several guys here that have certainly stood out. Gray Zabel, the interior offensive lineman from North Dakota State, has been a stud for all 3 days of the practices in the morning. And your guy, Belton from North Carolina State, who has made you hot and bothered. He was at it again today, and he's someone who can play left and right. So there are options, whether those are the kind of options that take you from where you were, which is pretty much at the bottom of the heap, to, competent to above competent. I don't know, but that'd be a good place to start.
The Ronnie Stanley thing is interesting because, given the player and also the team, because the Ravens do things differently than a lot of teams. Like, normally if somebody let go of like a starting left tackle, you'd be like, all right, I'm worried about that. But the Ravens are so consumed with comp picks and things like that, like, for example, they let Matthew Judon go. Mm-hmm. And Matthew Judon still had good football. And I remember talking to people from the Ravens, and they're just like, he'll do a good job in New England, which he did. So they let go of a player. They didn't want to pay him. Could they get into that situation? I'd be stunned if Ronnie Stanley hit the open market. But we'll have to see how that goes. I do think one interesting name in free agency, and we'll pretty much know Vrabel will have a lot of background on this player, Jedrick Wills, who was a 10th overall pick a few years ago, some attitude, injury issues in Cleveland. Vrabel worked with those guys intimately. So we'll know if the Patriots go after him, then Vrabel signed off on him. But if they don't, that means he's like, this guy's a turd. And
I just feel like there's too much there. I mean, you just Google him. He made business decisions this year, I think, multiple times. So I don't know if that's the kind of guy that you want to say, yeah, here we go, and we're going to build around this.
Yeah, Matt Decker asked, anyone at the Senior Bowl good enough to tempt you to trade down from 4? No, there is not a lot of high-end talent here at all. I think maybe the first Senior Bowl pick might be in the middle of the first round. Maybe with that edge dude,
Shamar Stewart,
who he was, by the way, the kid from Marshall, Green.
Yep.
There were a host of guys who sort of tapped out today who were like, I did enough the first 2 days, which is, it is what it is.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. Yeah. That's the kind of thing that they have to deal with there at the Senior Bowl. We heard one report about the Missouri lineman who all of a sudden shows up in a mock draft, and he was like 11th in the mock draft, and he was like, oh, I don't feel good. And that was the end of that, right? So
yep.
Once the guys feel like they've solidified their draft position or raised it, like, I'm out. I'm not going to do this and risk being embarrassed by someone lesser than or get hurt.
I was asked, where is it? Hang on a second. It was, hey, gents, who are the mid-level free agents the Pats can target? The attitude and effort guys, the Mike Vrabel, Roman Pfeiffer type of tone setters. Look, I'll just admit to you, as far as the draft and free agency, like I don't have a Rolodex in my mind. Like, that's just not what I do. I know I have listed them. I think what's important about this is the difference between last year and this year is all the different people, especially on the coaching staff, who are coming from places, whether it's Vrabel, in Cleveland and Tennessee, and Ryan Cowden with the Giants in Tennessee, and Terrell Williams in Detroit, like Josh McDaniels with the Raiders. The Raiders actually have a really good free agent class. Mm-hmm. Like, there are some guys, like I know, for example, Amir Abdullah is a small running back. If you're looking for, he is 32, but McDaniels loved him. He was a good, productive player for them. There are a couple linebackers there. Spillane and a couple other guys that are really high effort, high energy guys. Like, that basically look to the coaches, front office, everything, where they came from, and look at those teams. I think that's because they need to get. That's why they ran into trouble with Chukwuekorfor. There was nobody on staff who signed off and said, "This guy's good." That's when you run into problems. You want to have, whether it's through your connections or just people on staff, guys who can vouch for the players that are coming in to say, you're going to get high effort. You're not going to have to worry about that guy, that type of thing.
So I'm going to continue to kind of push this theory. And this is just me. The more I think about where the roster is at and what they need to do with this roster and the amount of turnover that's necessary, the amount of players that when we sat there and made the 53 last year, you're like, there's 8 or 9 guys here that probably should be practice squad guys at best. Yeah. But that's how bad your roster was. This is what you have to do. And to me, I look more and more at the 2001 free agent haul that the Patriots had. We're going way back. Belichick and Scott Pioli, 17 free agents they signed. It was the Brian Coxes, the David Pattons, the Mike Comptons, guys that were solid professionals, or guys like Cox who were near the end of his career, but sort of a tone setter and he's going to carry the message through. And obviously that team did things that no one expected them to do. Mike Vrabel, another guy who was part of that free agent class. But that's a place where if you strike out on the high-level guys, or if the high-level guys, whatever, T. Higgins decides he wants to play in L.A. or Washington versus playing in New England, which could very well happen, and you start to go down the list and say, well, maybe we're better off signing 2 guys at $6 million per and seeing if one of them sticks and becomes a good player, or you get that sort of veteran leadership and solidifies a room. And I just think the more I look at it and the more you look at the free agent list, it's not an awesome free agent list, especially if Stanley doesn't get there. And then it's like, well, you got to spend some of this money because your roster stinks. Yeah. You got to build it up, and that might be just the best place to do it is go that mid-level free agent class, build up your middle class, and help raise the floor.
PrizePicks is the best place to get real money sports action with over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings. PrizePicks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 1,000 times your cash. Run your game all season long with PrizePicks. It's playoff time and it's now or never. Don't miss out on the last few weeks of football action with PrizePicks, the best place to win cash while watching the playoffs. PrizePicks now offers MasterCard for quick and easy deposits into your account this sports season. Which players are going off, which ones aren't. Make your picks in less than 60 seconds and turn your sports opinions into real money all season long on PrizePicks. Download the app today and use code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, run your game. Game time. I found that through Game Time Picks. Filters out all the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. I love the all-in pricing. Toggling in this feature shows the total up front with no surprise fees at checkout. They have seat views. Get a panoramic view from your seat in the app before you buy. That's a must for me. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code CLNS for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time.
Let's see. Prophet Wake asks, do you think there's a chance they double dip at wideout? Think they need an X body and a guy who can provide some juice, spark, who's maybe a smaller body? Yes, depending on what they do in free agency. Because if they say they get T. Higgins, say they go for another mid-level guy that they're like, we have enough in Jalen Polk and Javon Baker, getting guys up to speed. Let's go more of the guys that we know that played in the NFL that we think can translate to this offense. Then I think that's limited. I'm not opposed to it, but just remember, there's so many spots on the team. Like you're talking 5 or 6 wide receivers at most. Like you're not going to keep 7 or 8. So that has to factor into it.
Well, they kept 7 last year, which again, it tells you the state of the roster where you're looking about, we'll keep Tyquan Thornton, we'll keep Kayshon Boutte, and Boutte obviously turned out to have a solid year and solid developmental year for him. But yeah, there's so many different spots that either are aging out or just have nothing there that you can't just throw all your resources at one position, even though that's the sexier position, obviously.
Yeah. Jay Dimao asks, any buzz on a Joe Milton trade? I don't want to give too much away because I'm probably writing some of this for later on Boston Sports Journal. But let's just say yes, and there's buzz that the Patriots are, I wouldn't say he's on the block right now. I would say that the Patriots are open to thinking about it. And we'll have to see whether they go through their draft evaluation, whether they see a guy, because you're going to need to replace Milton. 100%. So do they see that guy or not? And what do you think you can get? And is it better that you keep him for another year, let Josh McDaniels develop him a little bit more, and then all of a sudden I would say probably the trade compensation range right now for Joe Milton is a 3rd to a 5th round pick. I think it's on the upper side, but do you hold out another year hoping to get a second? Also, you need to evaluate the quarterback class. I think part of the reason why the Patriots might be contemplating that right now is because this draft class for quarterbacks stinks, as we see here in Mobile. Jackson Dart is probably the best guy here, and he's all right. I do like Riley Leonard a little bit. But, what do you think the chances of them actually parting ways with Milton after 1 year?
Yeah, I think there's a good conversation to be had there. But to me, you drafted him in round 6. You're going to trade him for a 5th? I get it. Hey, there's profit there essentially. But, to me, someone's got to come in and say, oh, we're giving you a 3rd round pick. And then I'm saying, okay, well, we drafted in the 6th round, and in less than a year, we can flip it for that. That makes sense to me, but trading him to improve 1 round doesn't make a lot of sense to me, especially because we did see some growth. And again, the last game, you have to take it with a grain of salt, but he showed a lot of things there that he didn't show in college. So that means he learned while he was here, and he's a teachable, coachable kid. And to your point, if Josh McDaniels gets a hold of him and he continued that development, who knows? Plus, someone gets hurt in training camp.
Right.
There's all possibilities there.
Yeah. Chris Conner asks, if the Patriots stay with the number 4 pick, will Vrabel go for offensive line or defense? Which edge players have moved up to 1st, 2nd round status based on performance? I would say all options are open for them at 4. One interesting thing that we have heard down here is that when we get closer to the draft, there might be some character questions with Abdul Carter. And we'll have to see whether that affects him or not. Lawrence Taylor wasn't a saint either. And so, we'll have to see how that goes. I definitely think the defense is up there. One guy I could see them drafting is depending on how Vrabel wants to build this team. And you look at his Tennessee teams, they were really strong from the inside out. That's where they, defensive tackle, the Mason Graham kid from Michigan, I would not be surprised if that's the guy that they draft. To pair him and Barmore in there, like, a new sort of Jeffrey Simmons, that type of thing.
Yeah, I'm definitely intrigued by that idea. And it is when you look back at the way Mike built the teams and helped, John Robinson was the GM, that they wanted to build, as you mentioned, from the inside out, and having someone that you could say, this is an 8 to 10 year starter. And he's could be a Pro Bowl level player. I don't know if he has the all pro athleticism type thing, but we don't have to worry about that spot for a long time. And again, the Barmore thing that's a question. Like, until he's out there, until he's doing it and makes it through, in terms of, we saw him for 4 games this year. I don't know how you can predict what's going on with his health.
Last thing here. Two more questions. Maybe you have more on this. More than a few people are asking about any buzz on the wide receivers coach, sort of like what's the holdup. I think they're going through it. Any names? I don't really have any names because we don't know how they're going to fill it out. This is part of the problem that we've been talking about, or not problem, but just I don't know what to make of it. That, the defense is all Vrabel people. The offense is a hodgepodge of people. So it could be anybody. I mean, if you're looking at it, if it was Josh McDaniels, a guy like Mick Lombardi, who's a lower level assistant with the Rams, who was here and did a really good job. He was part of the reason why Kendrick Bourne came in and had his best year of his career. I really don't know. It could go any direction.
Well, I mean, we still don't know Doug Marrone's official title. We're all assuming he's going to coach the offensive line, but would it be a total shock if he was a senior assistant head coach type thing? No, at this point, if you're going to do it, just do it. And they haven't quite put the stamp on all these things yet.
Yeah, the last one was from somebody, I forget who it was, but somebody asked a question about what the BC guys think about Doug Marrone. And so I talked to Ozzie Trapillo here, the offensive tackle from BC. Great kid, really smart as usual with BC people. He definitely was complimentary of Marrone. It sounds like he didn't have that much of a role. He mentioned that he put a lot of them through individual drills. So, some good tips, and they could go to him for stuff. Ozzie also mentioned that the defensive lineman got a lot out of talking to Doug Marrone. Definitely an old school type of guy. He definitely compared him to Billy O'Brien, his good friend, where they sort of coach the same way, come from the same background. But nothing over the top of being like, he impacted me. Yeah, nothing like that.
It was interesting when I was researching Marrone after they made the hire, and I went back and found an old interview of his, like 3 or 4 years ago, and someone asked him, do you come in with preconceived notions? This was for the Saints job. Do you come in with preconceived notions about what we have on the offensive line? And he's like, I don't want to watch their tape. I want to see them in person. I want to watch them move. I want to put them through drills, and then that's how I start to form my idea of what the kind of player that I have here is, and what is sort of the floor, the ceiling, those sorts of things for the player, which I don't know, if I'm coming in, I'd want to watch who I've got and say, that guy can't do it, or there's something there. He may not have had a good year, but I see these traits, instead of waiting until April to get him on the field, or May, whatever it is, get him on the field and then decide.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of that. I don't like that at all. I mean, when you come to an organization, not only do you have all this game film that you can go off of, but you have all the practice film.
Yeah.
And there's no reason why Doug Marrone can't look at all that stuff and already come up and say, this is what we're going to have to work on. This is his strength. This is where I see him, or at least give you an idea.
Right.
You can always change once you get him on the field. But look, they're not going to be in pads until training camp.
Right.
And we're talking about offensive line. What, you're going to get a good view during OTAs and mini camps in shorts and underwear? I don't like that.
I didn't love it either.
Yeah. So we'll have to see how things go. So that's going to do it for us from Mobile. We'll be on our way home tonight. I will be back on the regular pod with Nick tomorrow. He asked if I missed him. No, I do not, but I'll see you tomorrow.
I didn't miss you
and I'll
either,
hear
Nick.
about all your bitching and complaining about what I've said about the staff, we'll hash that out tomorrow. Make sure you guys tune into that episode. But for Mike Giardi, I'm Greg Bedard at the Senior Bowl, and we'll see you later on.